off again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Braith. It is Geordies here, Geordies there. This is a pre-recorded show, so unfortunately, having recorded this on Tuesday, we will not be discussing the Rangers game from last night, but instead we will be debating a few things which Newcastle United fans, I'm sure, will be more than interested in. As always, joined by a panel, and it's welcome to George, Steve, Al-Walid, Stu, and Kevin. Hi, lads. You okay?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
fine. Good to see you. Breaking news when we started recording this programme was that Alan St. Maximin hadn't travelled to Rangers on the bus, or on the flight, I should say. And, then the rumour mill, which has been, to be fair, in operation for the last few months about ASM, will he stay, will he go, really kicked up an extra notch, and links to Saudi, links to French clubs, other clubs in Europe have materialised over the course of the last few hours. But that prompted me to ask the question to the panel tonight, with it being a pre-recorded show. Who is, in your opinion, the greatest Newcastle United French winger? And we've had a few. We've had a few enigmas, you might call them. Ginola, of course, in the Keegan entertainer days, was somebody who scored wonderful goals with a bit of flair and a bit of je ne sais quoi. We had Ben Arthur, of course, who used to go on those mazy runs from the halfway line and have fans getting out of their seat. We had Laurent Robert, who would be a free kick master, we'll call him. And we've got ASM currently in black and white, or green, as it was on the weekend against Gateshead, who splits the fan base, it is fair to say, straight down the middle, in the words of Frank Sinatra. So out of those four, George, who for you has been the greatest Newcastle United Frenchman?
Well, I have to say immediately, I'm not even sure that ASM deserves to be in there, but that's me. It's got to be David Ginola, hasn't it? And for a number of reasons. One, his physical attributes, he was as good in the air as he was on the ground, good with his right foot. A lot of people didn't give him credit for that, as he was with his left foot. And you got David Ginola, a bit of David Ginola every match. At ASM, we're lucky if we get the real ASM every 10 matches. For example, his last goal was all the way back to Wolves. Brilliant goal. But if I've got to wait that length of time for another one, then I'm not sure what he's doing in that. The others, well, I love Laurent Robert because he was like an old-fashioned gunslinger. He lined the free kick up, he cleaned his boots, he pulled his socks up, he tightened his shorts, and then it was in the back of the net. Real entertainer. And Hatem Ben Arfa, well, I always say if Hatem Ben Arfa would have the right manager when Hatem came here, Hatem Ben Arfa would have been a hero, because he had the skills that nobody else had in those days, including ASM. But the trouble was it didn't last long enough. It was you used the right word, Steve, enigma. So for me, it's David Ginola. He's an athlete. Another one who wasn't frightened to take his top off because he had a six-pack and attracted lots of attention from all the fans across the range. So it's David Ginola for me, Steve.
Very firm opinions from George. Steve, what about you? Your favourite French winger?
Well, I mean, I have to say that I loved all four in terms of what they brought to the game. Different attributes as well. I mean, as you say, Ginola, silky skills, flamboyant, looked the part. Keegan brought him into the club. There was talk that Bobby Robson actually tried to sign him for Barcelona as well, believe it or not. And then you go to Robert. I mean, dead ball specialist. I mean, I don't think we've ever had another player like Laurent Robert for hitting the ball. Quite frankly, I mean, absolutely deadly. 32 goals that we got out of him in the 4 years. Didn't get anywhere near like that for Robert, for Ginola. And then Ben Arthur, I mean, wow, the ball just stuck to his foot. He had that ability to run. I think Robert, when you look at Ben Arthur, his career kind of stalled after that nasty leg break. I don't think he was ever really the same player again, both mentally and physically. And then you look in the modern day, up to date, you look at Alan, and you look what he did in that season where he played very, very well. Some would say single-handedly, I'd use that phrase sparingly, single-handedly kept us up. So I've got to choose one of the four. I think because he came first, I'd have to go with Ginola. Although the 32 goals and what he brought the game was exceptional with Robert. It's so close between those two for me. And I actually have a match-worn shirt of Ben Arthur, so it tells you that's the sort of flamboyant player that I adore. But yeah, I'll stick with me compatriot who I sit next to at St James's Park. Saves us all get back in August, and I'll go with Ginola.
Okay, good stuff. 2 votes for Ginola. Steve, are you going to make it a hat
Well, no, I think just to keep the possibilities of letting the guys below make the decision, I'll not make it a 3-0. Very difficult, as Steve's just said, to split them. All of them had something them in their own specific way, and I think the ASM comes fourth, unfortunately, because he didn't do as much as I think we thought he could do. But I don't know whether maybe the others didn't as well. Did Ginola not really contribute as much as we would like? The criticism of ASM of covering back and stuff like that. Ginola never did that either. Fortunately, he had Beresford behind him, and we didn't defend at all in those days anyway. It didn't make any difference. But I'm going to go for Robert. I think he scored some fantastic goals. I hadn't realised he'd got so many. Actually, it was when I looked at the stats. Played more than twice as many games as Ginola and scored 4 times as many goals. So I'm going to go for Robert to bring the scores a bit like the Ashes, 2-1. All to play for on the bottom row.
Enough now.
All to play for. Alwaleed, your favourite French winger that's played for Newcastle?
Well, this is going to be a little hard because I didn't witness Ginola very well. Just some clips and some few match, so it's very hard for me. I see Ginola, but like someone like George here who watch all the players and see Ginola, so it's definitely Ginola. And for here with Al Hilal Club, my team in Saudi, we have something like we have a great player called Yusuf Nayan, and it's very hurt me when I saw young generation seeing some normal names and comparing to the legend like Yusuf. I got the feeling, so I can't dare and say Maximin in front of you guys, because Maximin, he is actually the one who I really watch. I also watch. I remember Hatem Al Arafa, but for the player I saw, and with my life time watch, I can say Maximin. But for between all these 4, of course, it's going to be Ginola, because this is come from much more experience, way much more experience than me. So Ginola is the best.
Okay, Stu.
It depends how you're grading it, Steve. If you're talking about crossing ability, Ginola wins hands down. If you're talking about natural ability, Ben Arthur wins it. If you're talking about free kicks, Robert wins it. If you're talking about social media expertise, ESM wins it. I think my choice, to keep it simple, would be Ben Arthur. I think he did what the others couldn't do, and he was capable of doing what the others did do, but just not as much. And I agree, his leg break at that game at Everton probably held him back from becoming genuinely world class. And I disagree with the fact if he had a different manager. I think if he had a different attitude, he could have achieved whatever he wanted to achieve. But if you look at some of the goals he scored, yes, we can always get a highlight reel, and he was frustrating, but they were all frustrating. So when you talk about enigmatic French wingers, they all fall into that category. But just to keep it easier and give Kev a shot, to me, Ben Arthur would be the pick if I had to choose one of those 40. My team would be Ben Arthur. He can make things happen, and he could score, and he could create, and he would have any defence bricking themselves if he's on form. So Ben Arthur for me.
All right, Kev.
Gabriel Obertan.
No, he wasn't in the list, I'm afraid.
I know he was. No, just because I'm just having a bit of a giggle. All this smog in the Atlanta area, all this smog in the US is getting in my head like being in Middlesbrough, man. For me, just on the sentimental value, keep it short and sweet, it'll be David Ginola, just because I grew up watching him and I just thought he was graceful on the ball. I played wide right, actually, but so to watch him and see what he did on the ball and agree with everybody with the Ben Arthurs of the world and the who was it again? Can't remember. Robert, yeah, sorry, yeah. Totally agree with everything, but just from a sentimental standpoint, I would go with David Ginola.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be perfectly honest. I'm going to join the David Ginola fan club here. He was, for me, the best of a controversial bunch at times. That they had so much, so much talent between them, but a lot of it was wasted. Ben Arthur, I can highlight a couple of goals which he scored, but other than that, so many frustrating days. I put Ben Arthur and ASM in the same category. I think they were so frustrating. And they played at a time when Newcastle weren't competing, shall we say. They certainly were struggling at times, and they got people out of the seat. And I think that's why certainly the younger generation think that these two players were outstanding. They weren't. When you look at the goals that Ginola scored, Ferencvaros stands out. The Manchester United strike as well. There's so many great goals, but I guess the other thing with Ginola is, he stands out, but he was there probably the least out of everybody. ASM, I think, wherever he ends up, will probably do quite well if he ends up in the Saudi league, if he ends up in another European league. He'll have a little bit of a rebirth. But I think the one thing that all French players have in common is once they get their feet under the table, there's almost like a laziness kicks in. The need, they've achieved what they wanted to achieve for their own personal gain, and they seem to slip, and it takes a special manager to try and coach that back out of you, to get them motivated. I don't know. I can't generalize about French players because there's been so many great French players. I just think certain wingers that we've attracted, unfortunately, all fall into that similar kind of category. And it's
Ginola had the charm, didn't he?
Yeah,
that's what he had. Ginola's the sort of bloke who could charm a bird off a tree, couldn't he? That's what he had, the personality. There wasn't much of a personality in Robert. It only came out towards the end. And I think the other thing with Robert was he had the language issue. He didn't speak English at the time, if you remember.
Yeah.
So that used to frustrate Robson. And then Ben Arthur, as you say, Ben Arthur, I think people forget he came from right way through that French academy, which is so famous, and you'd think that there's an awful lot more about him than the sum of the parts that we saw. Yeah. And you look at the clubs that he played for, and you look at how he quickly moved on, and that tells you there was something about his attitude, something about either in his own mind or something that he created in other people's minds as well, that kind of pushed him to the side. I'm amazed that he didn't get the caps that he did. The opportunities, never came. Ginola had the opportunities, but got blamed. I think, was it Gerard Houllier that blamed him for not qualifying for 94?
Yeah.
Absolute scandalous. Took it out on him, when really, that you look at exactly what happened. I mean, Ginola was ripped apart by the French public because of that, and could barely show his face in France. That's why he basically never went back, So there's a lot of things went on among those players, a lot of things going on in their head that kind of really baffles you at times. And we've seen it at the moment with ASM. And it's strange that they're all French. I mean, is that just a coincidence? Is it because they've got all the skill in the world, but there's just something held them back? We'll never ever get to the bottom of it. But in their own mind, they were all fantastic footballers, weren't they?
Yeah, Steve, you'll never answer the debate though, because they played in different teams. I mean, if you take Ben Arfa as I chose him, but even St. Maximin, when they were at their best, they were the standout of the team. You know, they were the big fish in a small pond, weren't they? And they were the stardust. Would Ginola have been as good if he was in the same team that St. Maximin was in, or the same team that Ben Arfa was in? And you've got to think, no, he was in the best team of the lot, so he was given a platform to dazzle. And you know, because I know Steve Wilkins said they didn't defend. They didn't have to defend because they were always in the attack. So if you put any of them in that team, they all would have probably been elevated in our eyes. And so I'm not against Ginola. I thought he's fantastic. His cigarettes stunk, but I thought he was a fantastic player. But there's cases for all of them. So to me, it's a debate that'll never get settled.
Yeah.
But I think out of the four, without being too controversial, I think the general consensus would be of those who have seen them that ASM would be fourth, and then it's just a choice of who's for the podium. And that's not against him, because to be fourth against those three is not a bad race to be in, is it?
No.
But when it comes to it, has he carried a team? Yes, I suppose he did. He was a big fish in a small pond, but he didn't have the players with the same ability as the other ones did, so he did stand out more. And if anything, he's probably the biggest underachiever of the lot, and that's saying a lot compared to what Ben Arfa could have achieved. Yeah. It's down to one thing or two things. It's mentality and attitude.
Do you think Tottenham got more out of Ginola than we did?
I think it was on a par, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
He went to Villa as well, didn't he? And I think he had a similar start at Villa.
Yeah,
and he was it.
Yeah, I don't know whether in London whether he just blossomed a bit more. Yes, he had Shearer and Ferdinand and Clarkey and a lot of other really good players around him when he was here, and again he had the language issue. But once he got to London, he certainly got more recognition, didn't he, in the country? You know, he ended up getting Footballer of the Year.
National recognition. He got a Player of the Year, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think he would have stayed at Newcastle had he not been burgled. I know it sounds stupid, but that really shocked his wife. Yeah. And she wanted to move from there. Whereas
if Dalglish liked him a little bit more.
Yeah, well, the goldfish bowl that Genius talks about in London, you can hide a bit more because there is more people there, more personalities, etc. in the public eye. But if you're not happy, if your home life's not happy, it's hard to make your work life happy. And Dalglish had to pick that up, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, obviously the reason we're talking about Ginola and all the other French wingers is because of the news that broke, of course, on Tuesday night about ASM and not going to Rangers, and that led to a lot of speculation. And I mean, with us being a pre-recorded show, that story may have developed even further today. So I've got to ask, a lot of the stuff on social media, George, suggests that the reason that we are letting ASM go is because of the financial fair play, restrictions that we find ourselves under, and that is going to help Newcastle bring in players, multiple players potentially. It's not going to be sell ASM and bring Harvey Barnes in because it's a similar kind of transfer fee that we're expecting. They're talking between 35 and 40 million for Barnes, or 35 million pound and add-ons. With ASM, they're talking potentially about a 40 million pound incoming fee. But the way the financial fair play works, my understanding would be that Newcastle could do a little bit more business if they had brought in Barnes. So, is it an improvement? I'm going to ask, because there seems to be, surprise, surprise, a split in opinions about this on social media between Newcastle fans. People saying that Harvey Barnes isn't an upgrade. The stats for me, as a football fan, would say otherwise. His performance last season in a team that was relegated was far superior than ASM's in a team that qualified for the Champions League. You can compare. You can say ASM didn't play as many games because he was injured. But if you look back over the last 4 seasons, it's a landslide victory for Barnes in statistics again, with goals and not just with goals but also assists. So for me, I think it's an upgrade. I think it's an improvement. Just because it's not KK, better known as Vicha Varat Sheila. Thank you for Stu Penman and that. I've been showing that every night, Stu. I don't know whether you were aware.
I've seen it, yeah.
And I've been crediting you, so thank you.
I actually got a jam about my nice handwriting, believe it or not.
But it was your lass who wrote that.
No, it's my writing.
It was your. You got women's handwriting. George.
The reason for that as well. I'll take another take.
All right, mate. George, what is it an improvement?
It is for me. I'll take you back way back when we first started to talk about medicine. And every now and again, I was chipping in and saying, well, I would be going for Harvey Barnes. And I'm still would be doing that as well. Lots of reasons. The stats do say he's, in terms of ASM, he's a street ahead. But for me, it's also about attitude. I love ASM, don't get me wrong. He's a talented player. But I see ASM 1 in 10 games if we're lucky. And I want to see somebody that's there every game or every other game at least, but not once in 10. And Harvey Barnes, even in a team that wasn't playing well, made things happen for his teammates, and they went down. I'm not sure that he was a major reason why they went down. So I see it as an upgrade, and I also look at it and think, the bits and pieces I've seen of him playing, and I've looked at 1 or 2 of them since, he looks more like an Eddie Howe player, put it that way, than some of the others we've talked about. I think he's got pace to burn, and the other bits about him, his physicality and all the rest of it. He looks to me like somebody that would fit into Eddie Howe's plan, if you like, in terms of fitting in with the rest of the squad. The other thing I want to say was that FFP, the club not playing at Canyon, using that as a smokescreen. We haven't spent that much money. You know, the money we've spent, the money we got for winning this 4th place in the league. You know, we haven't dipped into our own coffers yet, I don't think. But never mind, unless there are other things happening off the scene that we don't know about. And I think that's probably the truth. And to put the icing on the cake, Harvey Barnes will come in with the money for ASM. But no, I think he'd be an improvement. He'd be a better fit for the team. Not in terms of skill. You can't argue about ASM's skill. Attitude and a better fit to what Eddie Howe wants to do.
Okay, Steve, are you in agreement with the man who you sit beside at the match?
100%, actually, 100%. I was going to say that you couldn't compare them 2 players for what they can offer in terms of skill and ability. You know, I mean, they're both professional footballers. They both played in the Premier League, but they're totally different styles of football, mentally totally different players, physically totally different players. But it's the fit. It's the fit of what Eddie and what he's putting together. Perhaps he feels that there's a better fit for a Harvey Barnes than there is for an ASM. Or perhaps he's being forced to sell ASM for the money. Maybe it's that. Maybe his arms being twisted up his back by people at the club who are saying, you know what, the only way we can go is to move someone out. Whether they've got the figures wrong or whether the powers that be upstairs are playing a game or are just not really at the races when it comes to exactly supporting Eddie. I'm not too sure, because it's this Harvey Barnes one has dragged on for quite a few weeks now. And we're going to America next week, and you know, he was adamant in his talks. This is Eddie, that he wanted players here before we started pre-season, and we're into pre-season now. So there's a few things spinning in my head with regards to the deal, but when it hits traction in social media, that's one thing. But then when the press start picking up on it, then it becomes a little bit more serious. And then when other certain people in the press, people that we respect a little bit more, start to talk about it, then you think, there's no smoke without fire. It's just disappointing, I suppose, in one respect, that you have to be playing a game where you're getting rid of one player to bring in another. In a different world, it would have been a different type of deal. But again, is it the Premier League stymieing? Are the rules that the Premier League have brought in? Is that the reason? The fact that cash is being held up because of sponsorship deals, the fact that we seem to go through a totally different process to everybody else. These are questions that are spinning in my head, because I suppose in one hand you're disappointed that you're losing someone of the caliber of ASM at the time when the club's moving forward, but at the same time you're looking at Harvey Barnes, who, to be perfectly honest, a couple of seasons ago I thought couldn't hit a barn door at 5 yards, and he went through a spell of that where every time you saw him on Match of the Day, he was either hitting the post or hitting it wide, missing opportunities. Last season, he seemed to get his game back again. And that the stats prove it in terms of his goals. I think he got 14 goals last season, which is not a bad record in midfield for a player playing in a team that was desperately struggling. He's got the physique. He's got the attributes. Perhaps he's exactly what Eddie wants. And if that's the case, then let's hope that Dan Ashworth can get the deal over the line.
When you said, this is just your feeling, that this isn't based on any concrete theories. So let's make sure that gets nipped in the bud before anyone runs off with a narrative. Do you think it's potentially Ashworth that he's, is that your mindset rather than those above? Because, the financial fair play is no doubt going to play its part in some way, shape or form. Do you think it's the fact that he's having to work in a different way? When he first came in, he was dealing with, you would imagine, Amanda, Mirdad, and, a bit more direct contact with the ownership. But now there is a chain of command of which Ashworth is certainly having to liaise with Howe. So is it a case maybe a few early teething problems, or do you think it's the finance?
No, I think that Dan Ashworth is finding it's a different game. The way that the Premier League stymied us with the financial fair play, he's having to work within a totally different confine to the one that he expected, the one that we expected as well. I think that there's been obstacles put in our path. I think that the fact that the club has always said that we'll play within the rules. We know that other clubs seem to get away with all sorts. And I just feel as though that perhaps when, like you say, when Eddie was dealing with the people above, Dan Ashworth wasn't there. Now Dan is probably also looking at a much bigger picture. He's looking beyond. He's looking at the whole club. He has the responsibility for looking after the purse strings. He has the responsibility reporting to the likes of Darren Eales, who's bringing the money in to make sure that the money's getting spent correctly. And there's bound to be a reticence and a fear that things could easily go wrong. And maybe he's a little bit more patient than Eddie Howe. Let's face it, every manager wants to spend whatever needs to be spent to get him where he wants to be, to get the players in that he wants. And this is probably the first time that since he's been at Newcastle where Eddie Howe has suddenly got the point where, dear me, I'm going to have to lose someone who I likes, and he's mentioned it a number of times, to bring somebody else in, and maybe it's not what he anticipated. And I'm sure there are plenty of fans thinking that as well. I just think there's a lot of cogs spinning at St. James's Park at the minute, and a lot of cogs that are not necessarily the cogs that we expected, but cogs have been thrown in by the Premier League, by UEFA, because again, the UEFA have a totally different setup when it comes to FFP. And I think that you also look at the fact that everybody says we're 2 years ahead of where we should be. Maybe Dan's still working on the plan for 2 years ahead, and not in the plan that Eddie thinks has had to be brought forward to try and get the club to the next stage. Because I would be in the camp I would be disappointed if we didn't finish at least where we were this season, and that's probably a conversation for another day. But you know, that I think this is the pressure that Eddie probably feels he's under, because he'll be wanting to play, he'll be wanting to be better, and wanting to succeed.
Okay, interesting theories from Stephen. I'm sure we'll be looking more at these kind of things as the transfer window closes and we ask people for predictions. Steve, the question is simply, is Harvey Barnes an improvement on ASM if that's the deal which goes through if ASM does in fact depart these shores? Oh, Steve's frozen. He's in a time warp there. The weather's got him.
Might just be thinking about it,
Well, he's definitely not.
Looks very pensive there.
He's very pensive. Al-Walid, I'll come to you. Is Harvey Barnes an improvement?
For me, it's not much. But as George says, he's Eddie Howe player, so this will make a difference. But for me, it's not much. But I believe Newcastle can get Barnes without selling Maximin. It's not about the money. It just maybe this 40 million we assumed we have. It's for another deal, not just Barnes. But it's the idea of Barnes and Maximin in the same team. This is not helping Newcastle. So it's, as George says, it's Eddie Howe player. He's coaching. He know better. And Maximin, I think he have a chance. I wish if he stay for one more season. But sometimes it's both the negative and the positive, and see what work for the team, because it's Eddie Howe decision, and always Eddie Howe. But this is what I'm afraid of. It's going to be a lot of compartment next season. Okay, Barnes, it's a wrong decision. This will improve by the season start.
Okay, statistically, he looks like a better player, Stu. Is he a better player?
Are you ready for this?
I am ready for it, Stu.
Right, regarding Alexander Maximin, I've been accused of not liking him. I do like him. But if we want to be a better team, we're a better team without him. I genuinely don't understand the word I'll use is hullabaloo. Hullabaloo. If it was 3 years ago when he was the main man, I could understand, because he was the only person that gave us hope in that team. And it was a turgid, desperate team that was slow and everything else. And him running quick with the ball excited us. But it's not 3 years ago. And everyone wants the club to move on, but we won't let our emotions move on. We still get attached to people who were good 3 years ago in a very poor team. So, like it or not, he's not the main man anymore, and he's a bit part player. And his exit enhances the team, and that will cause a divide. Bear in mind, I did see he got the goal of the season, and just to echo what George said, it's great scoring goal of the season, but if you only score more of the season, it becomes a bit of a problem. So the divide to me, I think, with the fan base is the older generation and the younger generation. And I think the older generation are more accepting and battle-worn of star players being sold. Like we've seen, I know George can go back to many more than we can, but the ones that in the last 40 years...
What you mean is the very old generation.
Yes. When literally everything was black and white. But since we found Technicolor, you had the stand that's now called the Milburn stand. It was called the Peter Beardsley stand, wasn't it? Because him getting sold was what funded that. Gascoigne, we all knew that he was going to be generational talent, and he got sold. Chris Waddle to a lesser point, but the thing is, with those, when they were getting sold, we knew as fans they were never going to get replaced by someone with even half the talent, and it was just going to be as fans, we were just going to get shafted, and it was put up, shut up, come and watch us, and that's it. We're in charge. But anything that happens now will be for the benefit of the team, of the club, of the city, and everything else. And it's possible that because the younger generation haven't experienced that, that's why a lot of them have grown up through the Ashley era. When you have a player with the flair of ASM, it's very easy to become attached to it, attached to him. But you have to remember, you support the team, not the player. And the team will be there in, I was going to say 5 years' time. The team will be there in 5 days' time, and he probably won't be. The facts are, and this is what we have to look at, and I think Eddie Howe has more credit in the bank than any manager since Kevin Keegan walked out the door, or since Kevin Keegan stood on the steps and talked about Andy Cole being sold. And I think he has the trust. And I think if you looked at I used the phrase before, big fish, small pond. If you looked at the thesaurus, you'd probably see a Gucci headband lying there next to it. But if we go back to suggesting, is ASM going to Saudi, I'll take some credit for that, because Mitch discussed that on the professionals 17 days ago, and then people started running with it. And I'm sure Ben Jacobs will claim that was his story as well. But you can have that one, Ben. I don't mind, because I like Ben. I do like Ben. But another thing that Steve Hasty mentioned there was regarding the transfers. I'm of the opinion now, bearing in mind, I'm not an accountant, but I think when it comes to financial fair play, I have a better understanding than some, but not as much as others. And that's just by reading it and trying to understand it and being good with figures. The transfer fee is not an issue. It genuinely isn't. It's the wages that's the problem of bringing more players in. And you've got to get where I think at the moment 95%. So we know the Deadwood has to go. But you know what? I think what people are underestimating is our owners, and I can't believe that this is happening. Regarding the ownership, I don't think people understand the brains and the thought process that goes into what PIF do. It's very strategic. And I'm sure if they started like sponsoring stadiums and training grounds and training strips and everything else, and all this money come in, where's the barter now? We know you've got loads of money, give us it. It will come, and it will come. You can imagine you need a new sponsor. What for? Okay. Has anyone really looked at PIF's portfolio? They are one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest funds in the world. The whole world, they've got contacts everywhere. There's people desperate, especially in this part of the world, desperate to be seen, to be associated with them, and will pay for the privilege. It's just like what we do on a lesser scale, Steve, the shows that you run. You charge a tenner to go and watch Steve Watts, for example. People will pay just to say they were there. People paid millions to see they're in bed with the PIF. And that's, to me, that will happen. So eventually it'll all level out. They're not going to spend all this money to let Newcastle be scrutinised or questioned in any shape or form. So by the time the window is finished, we'll be in a stronger position than it was when it started. Back to ASM. Sorry for this long shot, because I did say you already. The guy is an enigma. He's talented, but he hasn't delivered. Barnes scored more last season than ASM has scored in his whole Newcastle career. So let's take the emotion out and put the facts on the table. Do you want someone playing for your team that's going to score you more goals and create more assists? Or do you want someone who was good 3 years ago for us when we had a team of rubbish? And the answer should always be the first one. And the guys, as I said, he's a loner. He's not fitting into the team, but he goes with my best wishes. And I mean that sincerely. I hope he goes to Saudi. He rips it up. He loves the lifestyle. He'd be relaxed. And he could become a superstar. Yeah, he could do his mazy runs and create whatever he wants. But for the greater good, he will be gone, and Newcastle will be better for it. And I'm sorry if that upsets a few people, but if we come back to this time next year or 2 years' time, I think I'll be proven right. My only worry is if it is Ashley Barnes, and I still have my reservations about that, then he's going to be compared like for like, and that's not going to be fair on the new person, whoever comes in. That person needs to be given the utmost support and not be treated like Anthony Gordon was just a few months ago. We as a fan base have to stop being so needy and demanding and expectant straight away. we should be doing what we all claim to do, and is get behind the players who are on the pitch. And every time I watch Newcastle United, that's what happens, and that's what should happen. No matter who plays for us, as long as they're giving it their best, then that's all we ask for. And if their best gets better, if the players, if they're better than the ones that they're replacing, we as a team will get better, and we as fans will benefit. So just cool your jets and let them go. Wave goodbye to them, and give them a round of applause when we play Saudi later in the year or early next year in a friendly. That's it. We're going to get better with him gone.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, never apologise. It's always good to hear opinions. Cool your jets, another Stu Penman T-shirt for John the Knockup. Steve Wilkinson, is he an improvement? You froze there, mate.
I froze. I had to do the reboot.
We all felt you were giving it one of those big, long, dramatic pauses, and then we realised you were frozen. So,
well, everybody froze on my screen. Steve was stuttering, so I picked it up on the end. I'm not convinced. I don't know whether you discussed it where I was. I'm not convinced that the sale of ASM and the Ashley Barnes thing is the money's linked at all. I don't think that's the case. I think probably what's happened from an ASM point of view, I think he's realising that he's further down the pecking order. And if I was him, I would have been having a word with Eddie Howe in the last few weeks, which I'm sure he has, and said, where do I fit into your plans? Because I think, as we saw at the end of last season, while many other players improved vastly over that time that Eddie Howe's been there, ASM has improved a little bit, but he doesn't fit into the style of what everybody else is doing. And I think if he'd had a chat with Eddie Howe will have said, at most you're going to be impact sub. And also we've got other players coming forward like Elliot Anderson, who had a good game on Saturday. We're going to have an Anthony Gordon who is going to be having a full pre-season, will fit into the team better than he did last season, because we didn't know where he was going to play. But I'm sure having a full pre-season with Eddie Howe now in the next few weeks, we'll know exactly where he's going to play. And he's also going to be looking at that left wing position where ASM was playing. So I think ASM has had to make a decision himself. And there's obviously been opportunities, particularly with Saudi, as a potential gold mine for him to go and earn a lot of money, and also have the chance to exhibit himself and be a flair player as he was here when he was he was the star man here, and he could do the same over there. So I think the opportunity is there for him to develop himself now. As Stu said, he'll go with my blessing. I think if you look at the years with under Steve Bruce, he probably helped us to avoid relegation significantly. So his 13 goals, I think he scored in it while he's been there, most of them during that time. I think he'll go with our blessing, and we look forward to seeing him won't succeed wherever he goes. Maybe he'll win the Ballon d'Or that he was always after, but I don't think he was ever going to win it here.
No, I would certainly agree. Certainly a tongue-in-cheek comment, that one, I think. Kevin, is it an improvement? Is it an upgrade? Harvey Barnes, if that's the deal that's going to happen if ASM does depart, it's all hypothetical at the minute, of course, unless something's happened overnight.
Well, yeah, how to follow all of that? With the last one to go. No, I think it's a yes and no, but I think it's from a more of an English mentality standpoint that Eddie Howe wants to build his team around. Basically, not saying any other international player will say, "Oh, I'm not doing that," and throw the toys out the pram type of mentality. But if you get the right mentality of a player in through the door, whoever that may be. Yes, he's English, but I think that's what Eddie Howe likes. I think he likes it, the core of English players. Look at the signings that we've made. It's only been 2 internationals, essentially, and the Dutch lad. To come into the fray now with this Harvey Barnes coming in, and now you've got Anthony Gordon, and you've got others coming through the door who are young English players. And I think that's the mentality side of it. Regarding the stats stuff, stats is paper, it's relative. It's the production on the field. The production on the field will produce the stats at the end of the day. So that's what we ultimately look for, and that's what we ultimately see. And I kind of phrase all the time with players and through life, eyes don't lie. What you see is what you get. And if you don't like the play, you don't like the play. If it lights your candle, fair enough. But the thing is as well with Harvey Barnes as well. You know, it fills the English quota, which a lot of things have to. You know, it's not a box ticking exercise, but at the same time, it fills that need as well. Through European competitions, through homegrown up elements and things like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a full upgrade. I would say he's a year younger, so it's difficult to say where they are both in their careers. But I would say, in terms of Barnes coming in, I think you would there'd be a bigger output, obviously, from his stats last year, and I think it would be even greater this year. Plus, it'll be competition for Miggy on the right side. He's a versatile player. He can go on the right side, he can play on the left side, he can probably play in the midfield role. You know, so again, it's the versatility of the player. Maxi seems to be just left-sided, sort of, you know, when he wants to be. So yeah, I think if you get him through the door, I'll be not making any comparisons to ASM because they're two completely different players. You know, that's the easy thing to do. Like Stu said, it's easy to compare and contrast. Well, let this lad make his own mark on the team and on as an individual as well. So we'll see what happens. But I think it'll be a slight upgrade on ASM, to be perfectly honest.
It's quite interesting what you say there, Kev, because with Harvey Barnes, you've got more of a winger or a wide left-sided wide player who gets the byline than ASM does. Yeah. And again, that's like you then start to think, and you got my mind going there. You start to think of the tactics that Eddie Howe wants to use, but also I'd like to pick up on what Steve Wilkinson said there. I wonder, Steve, whether we really do have managers that bring players into the office and they have chats. I'm wondering whether it's actually the agent that comes in and says, "Why aren't you playing my client?" Because I think there's an awful lot of more that goes on than the actual in the old days where you would get, you know, Joe Harvey or Kevin Keegan, even where they would sit down. I mean, we saw the debacle at Tottenham where Mourinho sits down with Dele Alli and rips them apart, and then the next thing, it takes years before we find out what really was going on. You know, I think those days of and I think all that was for the TV as well, by the way. But I think the days of a footballer coming in and doing his own negotiating in terms of why am I not playing, I think those days have passed us by. I think he immediately goes home, gets on the phone to his agent in the car, and the agent comes in. You know, it's like get me dad in. You know, this bloke's been nasty to us, get me dad in type of situation and scenario that boils up. I think footballers are, you know, living in a little cosseted world, and they have other people to do their bidding for them now. But it's interesting, though. It's interesting.
But I think in line with that, I think, you know, whoever went in and thinking it from an agent point of view of wanting ASM's value to increase, it probably wouldn't if he wasn't going to get many games. So if the agent went in to say Eddie Howe, I'll accept that. Eddie Howe have said the same thing to the agent, that he's going to be an impact player, and the value that he might have now at 40 million-ish isn't going to go up from him being an impact player unless he has a significant impact and steps in the team, which I think we probably won't see him that much, or we wouldn't see him that much.
I think there's more chance of the agent going in and speaking to Dan Ashworth or Darren Eales, or even going further up the line than there is of him actually talking to Eddie Howe as well, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, we'll finish off on something which I haven't prepared you for. And this will be an interesting one. Elliot Anderson. Kevin, I'm going to start with you so you don't have to wait this time. Elliot Anderson is certainly, you know, making a mark, and would like to think he's going to progress this season. But apart from Newcastle United, Kevin, he has got a decision to make, and that is which international football team.
Thanks for this one, by the way, because I've got Tim next door to us. Well done. No, I'm not answering. I'm turning off. I'm going on.
You can't take the fifth, I'm afraid. You can't. So yeah, don't worry. We can't hit you through that little box, Kevin. Don't worry.
I wait until I read them though.
Go on, England or Scotland? Which one should Elliot Anderson play?
I mean, I know he's played at youth level, I believe, at Scotland. So, I mean, look, my grandfather and stuff like that moved down from Scotland, so I have an affinity to Scotland as well, by the way. So, it's not exactly, I'm English, yes, but, you know, friends over here call me the English Scotsman, so that's what I get called. But again, I think it would be up to the player, essentially. I think, you know, would he get into the England side and progress that he would possibly want to? Not saying Scotland are a bad side. I think they're very well coached. I think they've done very well in the past 2 or 3 years to develop where they got to now. You don't beat Spain twice in a row for now. You know what I mean? So he must be doing something right. So does he see himself being established more of a Scotland international or an England international? That's the bigger question for him. For me, I would go play for Scotland because I think you would have a better opportunity to grow and play in bigger tournaments if they do qualify for them tournaments.
Okay, Stu, our resident Scotsman. Well, Scottish football fan. Go on, Stu.
Well, I've got to say, like, despite what the lads say about you in the WhatsApp group, Kev, I think you sound me like. I really do.
You're nice now, aren't you? You're a million miles away.
No, it was. I've got to be careful how I say this because of what I know. But yes, he's well thought of, and Scotland want to cap him internationally in a meaningful fixture as soon as possible. But he sometimes gets injured or is not available when those choices come. And I think he's trying to stall on his decision, and which is fair enough. You know, although he is Scottish, he's Geordie as well. So I think ideally, if he had the choice as a footballer, and I'll say this, hopefully none of my family's watching, if he wants to win something, then he's going to have a better chance with England than he will have with Scotland. But is he going to have a better chance of playing for England than he is for Scotland? And realistically, no. And if he does fulfill his potential, he could become a hero for Scotland. Where is it England? He could get swallowed up either by other players of bigger stature or by the press who just want to build him up to knock him down. And it's a big decision for him, and he's still young. You know, so I think the decision he's going to have to make is going to be in the next 12 months because the Euros will be upon us. And as Kevin quite rightly pointed out, Scotland are on a roll over the last few years, and it'll be extremely unlikely that they don't qualify for it. And as with England, they'll qualify. Is he going to get chosen to play for Scotland? Yes. He won't get picked in that squad. Would he get picked in the England squad? Probably not. And this is the decisions he's got to make. Does he want to be playing international football to do his family proud, or does he want to wait to do himself proud? And I hope that he chooses Scotland for selfish and personal reasons. But whether he becomes good enough to be an England regular is a different matter. And Scotland, to me, the way it's set up, and of course I'll be biased, not just with the national team, but also with the coach, who Kevin knows as well. It's done very much on a team ethic, similar to what Newcastle's like. So he'd be going into that feeling part of the team, not feeling isolated as a young player that would get called up for England for the first time may do. So hopefully he plays for Scotland. By the way, the team's out for the game tonight in Tonali.
Well, obviously it's the game last night, so I have seen it. I mean, obviously Tonali starts, but I mean that's it. You know, with this being a pre-record, this doesn't go out till Wednesday. But the game will have already been played, and we'll
we won.
Well, let's wait. There's a prediction, Steve.
3-1, yes.
Yeah. Classic. Yeah, we didn't, obviously. Did we? Who knows?
Yes, we did.
Alwaleed, Scotland or England? Which one should Elliot Anderson pick?
Well, actually, it's up to him, really.
Scotland.
It's up to him, yes, it's up to him, but which one should he pick?
Well, if he wants a chance to play, of course, I'm going to say Scotland, because it's very hard to play for England and very hard to guarantee a position. But I remember a similar situation happened with Bamford from Leeds. I don't know which second country, but I was wondered, and I don't remember who I asked from you lads. I said, why Bamford been chosen and for temporarily? And someone answered me to guarantee that England, to guarantee the player to be in England, so they make him play. If you remember Bamford, the striker. So maybe something happened with him if he play good this season with Newcastle. Maybe England make him play just to guarantee to play for England. But generally speaking, look like more lucky to be in Scotland for playing there for them.
Okay, Steve Wilkinson.
Right. I don't know. Would Stu Penman play for England is the big question.
No, I couldn't. I genuinely couldn't. I was born in Scotland, and my parents were born in Scotland and everything else. So the only time I could have represented England would have been for schoolboys. I could never have played for England.
I think the thing about Anderson is where does he fit in the development of England players? He hasn't come through the young ranks of the under-21s that just have won the competition, and I don't know whether that's going to be a hindrance for him getting into the England squad years ahead. The thing is how much is he going to play for us in the coming 12 months? Now, if he can become he's got to get to be the level of Phil Foden. You know, Phil Foden took a few years to develop in Man City, and now he's still not playing every game of Man City, and I think that's what we'll see next season because of the rotation that'll happen. I think we'll see him playing more, whether it's on from the start and going off or starting, or even for him playing the full 90. Is that enough to get him noticed by Gareth for the England squad at this stage, when he's probably already into his planning with his squad, you know, for the forthcoming competitions? So I don't know whether he's still young. I mean, he doesn't need to be thinking about England for another 4 or 5 years to be really getting into it at a later age, and he'll hopefully be doing well for us in the meantime. But I suppose if he wants to win something, it's probably got to be England if he chooses that. If he believes that he's good enough to compete with the likes of Foden and these sort of players in the years ahead, because that's the age group that he's in up against, and Bellingham as well, obviously.
Okay, Steve, England or Scotland for Elliot Anderson?
You know what? While you were talking, I thought I'll have a look at the two squads, England squad and the England under-21s, and look at the players that he's competing against. And if you look at the first team squad, he's now competing against Trent Alexander-Arnold because he's been promoted into midfield. Eze, Gallagher, Henderson, Maddison, Phillips, Rice. And then you can include Foden, although Man City play him as a striker. You could include Grealish because he played him as a striker. And you could include Saka, although he plays wide on the wing. And then you look at the under-21s, you got Gibbs White, Gomez, Gordon, even though he plays as a striker, you could class him as a midfielder. Curtis Jones, Cole Palmer, Harvey Elliott, Oliver Shipp, Ramsey, Doyle. The vast majority of those under-21s have got an abundance of games behind them, an abundance of experience. Been playing for 2 years for their clubs, if not longer. And he's just breaking into the team. He's got to break in ahead of all of those. He's got to look at them and go, of that England squad, who's not going to be there at the end of this season? Probably only Henderson. And the rest of them, knowing the way that England play, are probably embedded in it for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And then you look at the players that he's competing against, who are only going to be an opportunity to break in maybe 2 of those positions, and then he's up against Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott. He's as good as them, but he's got to get into the Newcastle team. Whereas I think when you look at the Scotland squad, he'd be far better suited because he would be straight in. And as Stewie said, you know, without breaking any confidences, we know that they want him. We know that they're desperate to get him, and it's an opportunity to play international football. And somebody mentioned there, if he wants to have a chance of winning something, I think Stewie even said it himself. But really, if he wanted a chance to win something at international level, he should have been born in 1943 and then hope he can get it. Didn't he? You know, that's because I mean, I'm 60 odd year old now, and I haven't seen England. I've only seen we're winning when I was 6 year old. You know, so look at it that way. It's what the lad can put on the international stage and where it can take his career. And I think he'd be far better suited now. If I was making the choice and advising him, I'd say get yourself into the Scotland squad and be a hero up there, because the opportunities might not come, but I think the opportunity's there now and he should be taking it. And I think it would boost his Newcastle chances as well.
Okay, George.
Oh, straightforward for me. Steve's analysed it very nicely, but even before that, I would have said, if he wants a long and significant international career, that will only happen with Scotland. I can't see Gareth Southgate, if he's still the manager, picking Elliot Anderson on a regular basis at all. Once, somebody's already said it, once, Waleed said it, pick him once to lock him into the England group rather than let Scotland have him. No, if he wants a long and significant international career in which he could become a national hero, then it's Scotland. He's never going to get that status with England, not in the current setup.
I love you all.
Fantastic.
Had any choice?
He's got to start for Scotland. No doubt about it. There you go. It's a landslide.
Oh, sorry, Steve. I was laughed when Steve Hasty said about the agent going in to talk to the manager, and it may be the father that goes in to talk to the manager. Well, in 1960, when Mitten was our manager at Newcastle, I thought my father had knackered my career because he went to see Charlie Mitten. We played a game at Hunters Moor, and in front of the dressing rooms there was a platform, and if ever Mitten wanted to make a speech, and he was always making speeches, he used to get on that platform and talk to the assembled crowd. And on this day, he chose to say, "Now these young lads that's in this team, and I was one of them, if they want to make anything into my first team, they want to become famous, even if they get their name on the front of the News of the World, that might be the thing that will change it." And apparently my father went red after he heard that and went round the back and asked to see if he could talk to Mitten. And apparently it's reputed he said to Mitten, "If my son gets on the front of the News of the World, I'll be up to St James's Park and kick your arse all the way to the Central Station."
That's a great place to finish. What a great show. It's great to have a live audience at times, but it is sometimes good just to have a chat. I hope you all enjoyed it at home and in the chat and had your own opinions. We will be back live tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock with Supermac and Gibbo. But for now, it's thanks to Kevin, thanks to Stu, thanks to Al Waleed, thanks to George, Steve, and Steve. Take care, lads. See you soon.
Hi, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Good to see you, lads.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you want to order some, then you can go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks also to New Workwear. They were set up in 2018 and they are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. You can find them at their website, newworkwear.com. Thanks to Media Arts as well for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under this video. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to take out a cult membership, which means you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw, then put your smartphone over this QR code now. It'll take you straight to the site. You can set up and pay a one-off fee of £25. Alternatively, go to nufcmatters.com and check for membership. If you're a subscriber, you can apply for a free car sticker. Just email john@nufcmatters.com to claim yours today. The new Shearer raffle is up and running. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket to win a limited edition Alan Shearer signed ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a couple of events coming up. Newcastle United question and answer live with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin and Dominic Skerr from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette in association with NUFC Matters takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre, 11th of August at 7 p.m. and tickets are a £5. The Christmas event will be with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, December the 7th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com. And Waddle, Keegan and Beardsley, the class of 84 with special guests, takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westcott Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 25th. Tickets are available direct from the theatre, 0844 24 91 000, or go to the website for further details. And don't forget, starting on the 7th of August, you will be able to hear myself, Steve Wraith on the Northeast Footy Breakfast. This comes to you in association with the Tyne Radio. 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 5 days a week. Check out the Facebook for more details. We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.